Hi, Terry. It's been such a long
Hi.
time since we met, even online for that matter. So good to be with you.
Good to be here.
Thank you. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Krishna Pendyala. I'm a writer and an author and a executive coach. And I focus on making decisions in real time. And my great friend Terry has agreed to be in a conversation. And Terry, can you tell us what you do?
And this is the moment everyone hates. I hate it. And everyone who's ever been asked, what do you do, hates it. It is a crush moment, isn't it? I'm going to tell you what I tend to tell people, but I'll tell you what, I change it every time. But I'll give you the easy version.
Okay.
The easy version is that I'm a writer, a speaker, and a brand advisor. And yet, even if you list three things, does that cover the majority of what you do? No, of course not. Though it depends on who you're talking to, right? So, Krishna, I met you because I was speaking at an event. We met because we were both speakers. You were speaking there too. And yet we've gotten to know each other and all the kinds of different things that we do. But people want to know how you pay your rent and your mortgage, right? So if you have to ask me, that is how I do it. I run programs, I run workshops, and companies hire me to help them figure out the best way to articulate and express who they are and what they're like to work with.
Wow.
And I've never said it that way. And I like that way. Too bad I'll forget it for next time, but that's okay.
That's okay. It's funny how much people try. And sometimes you listen to these programs and say you need to get it in 30 seconds or the standard. Remember the old elevator pitch? What's your elevator pitch?
Right.
And it's so, and many times when you practice it and rehearse it and try to get the words right, it just sounds pretty contrived.
Canned,
Canned. Okay, canned.
canned, contrived, or it feels like if someone wrote it for you and it's very like markety, it doesn't feel like you to say that. So that's why how I don't like to feel like I'm giving a line and no one else does either. So I did it for you just now. I said, let me deconstruct it. Companies and individuals hire me to do X because now you understand what it is. Even if like if someone goes, I do websites. So what does that mean? You design them, you build them, you know what I mean? So I think part of the challenge, because every one of us will be asked what we do.
Hmm.
And I think that the reason we get like, oh, is because we can't possibly sum it up. We're afraid they don't care or they won't understand. The best thing you can do is just let out a measure of what you do in a way that that person can hang on to and ask you another question. No one needs a monologue.
That's interesting. No one needs a monologue. And I think the more pressure you have, I think that more pressure we put on ourselves to get it just right in one bite sized chunk. And I think that's when the problem begins, right?
Because if I spit it at you, if I spit at you my LinkedIn super smart, cute tagline or something, then you go, oh, and you're like, am I supposed to know what that means? Like, it doesn't actually do what it should when you're in conversation with someone, which is start the conversation.
Bingo. So, why do people even ask that?
I think it's, well, I know that people who have studied this know better, and they've told me that it is cultural. If you go to a party somewhere in Paris and you start asking people what they do, they might start to look at you weird because they don't see themselves or identify necessarily culturally as their job. They'd say, why are we talking about work right now? We're trying to have a party, right? So I believe this is a very American thing that we
Mm,
think, it's very much about the work ethic and what do you do for a living? Also, because maybe we think that anything else would be too personal. So I feel like work is the thing that is personal to you, but isn't too personal.
wow.
And now I know people are very sensitive about saying to a woman, or especially like, oh, do you work? And it's like, that's weird. So do you work outside the home? So Krishna, a lot of people have said we shouldn't ask each other that. I said, well, that's not the way people are going to want to know what you do. Is we can't decide like I don't answer that question. Well, now you're not someone I want to talk to at all, and that defeats the purpose.
It's funny you bring this up because I've pondered this very question for many, many years. And one day I tried this and I think it came across being a smartass. So, what do you
Oh
do?
no,
Which was,
what'd you do?
what do you do? What do you do? I'm just a regular guy trying to raise a family and make a living.
Well, it's true, but
But,
then that
but
doesn't give them anything, right?
exactly, it doesn't. So, it was just an attempt at seeing what the reaction
What
would
was
be.
it?
I think I don't know. I couldn't read between the lines, but The one I thought was maybe, hey, this guy's just trying to be a smartass, you know. Uh, but it was really about who you are. I think what I was struggling at that time is, what are they really wanting to know? Who are you,
Right.
or what do you do?
Or
And
your status. Are you important? Where are you falling in the hierarchy? There is some of those buried things.
actually, that's a very, I didn't even think of that because it was a networking event. And so very quickly, people know there's about 40 minutes for networking. I need to get to know the right people in this audience of 80. So, what screening element do I use to
Who's the
figure
right
out
person to talk to?
who do
Right.
you want to spend time with? Where do you fall, like you were saying, whether it's status or connections or that right type of contact? So, really, uh, the best thing, usually when somebody reads my bio, when they introduce me as a speaker,
Mhm.
I will tell them, you just got to meet my ego.
Yeah. That is fantastic. I love that. I also feel a little self-conscious when people read this bio, which is collapsed over 20 years of achievements and only a few pulled out. So I always get up there and say, that great, you heard about 5 minutes of my life. Like, that's not who we are, right? We're
Mhm.
not a bio. I
Right.
love that you said that because it's true. We're proud of that. And the
And I
event that
said there's a
introduced,
purpose. There is a purpose
there's a
for this
purpose to
bio
say it.
because if I have a shitty bio that says I'm nobody and I've done nothing,
Why will you
I won't
listen?
be here. Exactly. And
And
why?
that event wants to show, look at this important person we got. So it's all trying to support ego all around, but it's not really who we are. And you know what, Krishna, I'm just thinking, I don't think I ask people, I'm trying to imagine now that I've started to go out into the world and talk to people, I don't think I've said, what do you do? I think I tend to say, because I don't want to, I know it makes people uncomfortable. So what I'll ask sometimes is, so what are you working on lately? Because then they can say, oh, I just adopted a puppy, or I'm planting a garden, or I'm working on a podcast. I didn't say, do you make money from your podcast? It's, what are you working on now? Everyone's working on something.
Hmm.
And that gives someone permission to turn attention away from work if it's a touchy topic or something they don't feel like talking about. And I'll just ride wherever they go. You know what I mean? I think that's the point. Is the point of the question is to get to know someone. What their job is and what their LinkedIn profile says, you can look that up later. But if they tell you they just adopted a lab puppy, you're going to have a lot to talk about. And then later, when you follow up, you can say, can you send me pictures of the dog? How's the dog doing? It creates more of a personal connection.
So coming back to this, I think the conditioning that we've been through, and you say it's an
Mhm.
American thing, which is, you say, hi, I'm Krishna, or hi, I'm Terry, and then there's this awkward silence, right? So we fill that silence with what do you do?
Right.
I don't know if that's what it's prompting the what do you do question,
It
or
is. What else do you say? What's your favorite color? What did you eat today? I mean, there's a limited scope of things. So, or people will say, if you're at an event, so tell me, how did you end up here tonight?
right.
That at least gives us specifics. I think as soon as we get into the abstract, talk, well, I work with it, and then that person starts glazing over. It's like, let's talk about why we're here right now. I find the immediate way more rich with
Hmm.
sensory detail and how'd we get here tonight? And oh, where'd you come in from? And da 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 da. That at least gives us something to talk about. But I think that trying to fit your career into a line is a lot.
Okay.
And I will pick and choose what I'll say based on where I am. What is the purpose of this event? You know what I mean? Like, I have a friend who does a lot of different things. And when people ask her what she does, she goes, well, why don't you tell me what you do first? Because I have a whole bunch of things that I do. And rather tell you one that's the most relevant to you.
Oh, that's a beautiful way of picking what matters to the other person
Yeah,
or might
tell me
resonate.
first. That's right. Because then you're not just, well, I do this and I do this. What? No one asked for all those things.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know what I mean? We don't need to prove our worth there.
That's
Uh,
an interesting comment. Hold on. Pause on
yeah.
that, Terry. So,
Yeah,
what? Okay, what is the need to prove our worth to the other person? Or is this a status game that we're playing?
it
With
is.
what
It
do
is
you do?
because I think we are forever. Say we're in person. Okay, this is for like in person or getting to know people, or even actually even on Zoom if you're in a group. And if you run a group, like I run lots of workshops online,
Mhm.
I never ever start with going around the room because no one's listening.
Mhm.
They're all worried about what they're going to say. Because the reason is we do want to, what is the reason? We want to prove that we're worth someone's time and attention. And
That's
so we might feel like we have to brag about somebody, be like, I swear I have some social capital or something. I feel like when I'm talking to someone and they grab for the capital to like prove they're someone, I just think it always comes off a little douchey. So I try to put myself in the role of curious, want to learn, here's something I'm excited about rather than here's why I'm better than everyone here. I hate that vibe because the
Hmm.
goal is to have a bunch of great conversations and pick what one or two people, maybe three, that you'd want to talk to when you leave this room.
Hmm.
And I think so that urge, like you said, the ego driven urge to prove that we're someone special, people who end up being special to us never had to tell us.
That's right. That's right. So let's flip the coin here and say, okay, you are asked. So let's say you don't ask this question, but you do get asked this question. What do you do? So if you
Well,
had
and
to kind
yeah, if I had to.
if you had to, but I know you did it real time because
Mhm.
I put you on the spot because I knew we were going to talk about this. And then I said, what do you do? Tell us what you do. And boom, you got into it right away. But when someone is asked, how can they kind of, if they, I mean, so yes, some people actually predict that they will be asked this question and prepare for it.
Yeah,
That, as we say, comes out canned. But what kind of, how can, maybe since you also coach people on speaking and writing and all of that good stuff, what can you kind of give some guidelines as to when people are asked? What's some ways to respond?
I think you can have something prepared. I don't think it has to be a smart sounding markety tagline because people don't speak in taglines. But one of the things that I have found helpful is to make sure I am always um, kind of taking what I do out of its shell. And that shell is jargon. So if I say, oh, I'm a management consultant who works with high achieving executives to optimize their da da da, that doesn't mean anything. No one talks like that. So what I try to do is I put things through, and I've been teaching this a lot lately about filtering out jargon, because the way I see jargon is anything that's a container word. It's like, oh, well, marketing. Well, marketing could be a million things. Branding could be a million things. You could be a designer and be a branding expert. You could be a writer. Like, so when you go to say, and this is what I have people do, I have them write it down. What is the typical answer you would give? Now, which of those words are container words, meaning they could mean different things to different people? Take it out of the container, de jargonize it,
Mhm.
because to my mind, jargon is like cursing. It's fine in the right context with the right people, but if it's the wrong context, the wrong people, they might just feel now distanced from you. It can
That's right.
happen.
That's right.
So I would say, what are the things you say? Write it down. How can you explain it in a way that is relatable? And the antidote to jargon is, to my mind, metaphor,
Hmm.
because we think of metaphor as a literary device. Well, no, metaphor is universal language. So if someone says, well, I have this jargony answer and I don't like it, what's the metaphor? What's it like? You can say, well, I'm a executive coach for startup founders. And what that means is, so immediately contextualize it. Rather than just go, I'm a executive coach for Fortune 500 executives. I'd be like, okay, be like, basically companies pull me in when their executives are starting to cause little problems in the company and they want me to sort of talk them down or whatever. Like whatever that job is, put it in a way, like I'll tell you the grossest, and sometimes I'll use like really graphic, not X-rated, but graphic analogies to show what I do. So branding consultant. You could throw a rock at my window right now and hit a brand consultant. There's a million of them. But I said, what I do is I'm really good with language, and I can help you say what you're trying to say and you can't quite get there. So I'm kind of this human dialysis machine that I'm going to take your ideas and wash it through me, and it's going to come back to you even clearer and cleaner and something you can use. It's gross, but you'll never forget it. And the way to make people remember things is like, oh, wow. Use metaphor. What is it like? I'll walk people through lots of different metaphor ideas and try to compare that to something totally different, because the metaphor is something that anyone can relate to. So then they go, oh, I get it. So what's that like? Then you have a conversation going
Correct.
and they learn something. It's interesting. Metaphors make things interesting to my
Absolutely.
mind.
Actually, metaphors have a lot of benefits because they're memorable, relatable, and high degree of recall because that's what they connect. He or she is like that, right?
Right.
In
Choice
fact,
ladder. You're using ladder. You're using an object, a real thing.
yep, yep.
People remember things.
Recently, I mean, this company, but will not give them mention the name, but they are into processing orders, different orders. So one of the things is their operations manager said, "Hey, 97% of our orders do really well." And the CEO was not happy about that because he said, if you dehumanize it, 97 sounds like a pretty cool thing, but you're in the lending business. So if you're in the home
Mhm.
lending business, three people did not get their home on time, and they maybe drove the U-Haul to the front of the door, and the closing is not done. Where do you
Oh,
unload? So the way I had to kind of help their people realize the business they're in, I said, think about it like you're in the wedding planning business. If you screw up three weddings in every 100, do
oof.
you think you will have a business?
Yeah, I don't know about those odds
Yeah,
because brides talk. You know what I mean?
exactly, exactly. And it's not the 97% are not going to brag about you. The 3% are going to really say,
Hmm.
my best day was ruined.
Oh, yeah. You're looking at metrics versus experience, right?
And same thing. So even when it comes to metrics, humanizing it or creating a metaphor, imagine you were in the wedding planning business. So what happened was they realized the magnitude of impact to that customer.
Oh my
So
God. Yeah.
metaphors are definitely extremely powerful. I mean, technically that way, the pig and the ape are sticky because pig and the ape are metaphors for pursuing instant gratification and avoiding painful experiences. The whole pleasure and pain theory has been around a lot, but people don't recall it as quickly as pig and ape.
Oh, right. I mean, you've exactly it. It
Yeah,
makes it very sticky.
yeah.
I mean, part of the challenge, okay, so when I do work with companies who are, I mean, I'm really weird about the term rebranding. It's not rebranding. It's like, can we improve it? Can we make it even sharper and clear? When people hire me to do that work, a lot of that is they want to package it up for marketing purposes. And I say, no, we want to unpackage everything. I want to take all the containers and dump them out and really look at the stuff because your stuff is different. Your containers and your containers look the same. The beauty's in the stuff, but a lot of people just pack it away in a container and they think they're going to sell that. So I don't think we give enough credit to our individual stories. And I think if someone asks you what you do, you can easily get them engaged in a story you feel like telling. They're not going to go, well, let's go back to your bio. They don't care.
Mm,
But if we look at what actually, people are always worried, what makes me different? What makes me worthwhile? It's in that stuff. Getting someone to letting someone know you, know details and things about you rather than just know the jargony container words that you think give you status, they're going to remember you.
yes.
People remember stories,
Yeah.
and I think when someone asks you, what do? You could say, I'll tell you what I did today. Boy, did I mess up. I hit reply all on an email that I was not supposed to. Oh, no. Now I'm having a good time talking to you about what you did and you messed up and you told me about it. So now I feel you trust me. And it's not even a game I play. I literally just tell someone who's in front of me what just happened to me. I like to do it. I like to entertain. I think it's fun. But a lot of people know I have to look good to this person.
That's right.
I don't think so.
That is amazing. Given the, hey, on that note, since you talk about differentiation and, how do you differentiate when everybody's in the room is the same person? I mean, you and I have worked with financial advisors, quite a
Yes.
number of them. And usually when you ask, what do? You get the standard answer. I'm a financial advisor. And if
And they don't like that either because they know people have assumptions about advisors and they don't like that. And the advisors, I mean, yeah, you and I have worked with lots of different advisors. Every one of them and their teams are completely different.
that's right.
I have worked with a bunch of them and they'll say, well, you've worked with other firms. Well, how are you going to come up with something new? I was like, I'm not going to come up with something new. You're different. You haven't told anyone how you're different, but you're going to tell me. And I'm going to turn up the volume on that. And it's such a breakthrough for them to realize, oh, oh, everyone's trying to save for retirement. I'm like, but that's not your point. You do it differently than someone else would.
That's right. In fact, I have personally witnessed three or four of your work with financial advisors, and I've seen the output. And I really love the metaphor of the dialysis machine because there's so much commonality in them, but the output that you come up with is so different.
And it's not because I'm some kind of genie. It's because I have a very finely tuned instrument for picking up on what makes them different. It's already in them.
That's right.
I don't take credit for coming up with it. I just package it in a way that highlights what they already are. And that is a process. Another metaphor for you, a lot of advisors, then again, if you go to any industry, they all paint with the same three shades because they say, especially with financial services, they say, well, compliance only gave us these three colors. Yeah, but I got 10 colors out in the back. Compliance won't even know what hit them because it's not anti compliant. It's just that you were trying to create yourself as an individual entity through compliance. You can't. And people go, what are you going to do about compliance? I said, compliance is like copy editing to me. It's the last check to make sure everything's in order and everything's in a row. If you can't brand without upsetting compliance, you're trying to sell something that isn't true. And the key antidote to that is originality, which so few of them have. So I'm like, we don't worry about compliance till the 11th hour, because that's when we'll make sure all periods and commas and capitalizations and compliance, check, check, check.
And the word guarantee is not used.
Right. No exponential growth, nothing promissory. I mean, I said, what is the deal with this? And I learned about it.
Yeah.
And I've never had anything I do get stopped by it, because compliance doesn't even compute original thinking. They just want to make sure you don't say these 10 things.
Yep. That's right. So we moved from individual, what do you do, to even how to kind of say. But usually when you ask, what do you do, there's no compliance listening to you, right? So technically you have the freedom to say whatever you want. And I really liked your comment about making it relevant to the other person by asking, what do you do, if you're asked to that. And I remember distinctly when I actually went through sales training in my second company, the sales trainer said the key thing is to learn more about them. And when somebody asked, how are you different from this other company, our competitor? So after the training, I said, I have a 40-minute answer for that. But before I get started, can I ask you what prompted you to ask me that?
Yes.
And I got such color. Oh, two of my people went to the other company's developers conference and came up with this, and I think you guys are better, but I don't know how. So could you tell me? Look at the color. I would have
You
not
get
had
so much more. You get so much more
any
to
idea.
work with. Like
Yes.
if someone goes, why are you better? That's like me saying, do you have a best friend? Well, yeah, it's this guy I've been friends with. Why don't you be best friends with that guy? Well, because I'm not best friends with that guy. Like our decisions are all very personal. The idea that you should know right away, if you go in saying, because I'm better than everyone, no one believes you. And so if someone goes, well, what makes you different? If someone says it to me, I'm just imagining it now. No one said it. What makes you different from any other branding person? I'd say, quite frankly, I work for myself. It's just me. So I get to be idiosyncratic in my process. I get to do it how I want to do it. And I found a way that really works and that people love doing. Sure. Can you get a great brand from a designer here and a copywriter? Of course you can. There's no, sure, I'm not the only one who could do that for you. But the way I do it isn't really like anyone else. And people who've done it have really loved the process and have learned a lot about themselves in the process of doing it. That's all I got. I can't tell you I'm better or the ROI is better. They might be like, well, I would like to learn more about that, or they might not. So it's really like not worrying that, when someone asks you what you do, you're not there to put a whole pitch on the line and try to sell someone. No one wants to be pitched or sold in a casual conversation or lectured. So actually, I want to go back to that. When, say, a financial advisor were to say, well, I'm an advisor, but let me ask you something. Are you married? Do you have kids? I'd be like, I would not like this. Like, are you saving? How much are you saving? Like that kind of, I'm about to prove why you need me. Wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. You want someone to go, wow, it's cool. I want to learn more about what you do because I need that. You never, and I've been in those conversations. Well, how long have you been going to that guy? Oh, is he doing this? I don't know. But if you have your conversation partner on their heels, defending choices they made 5 seconds before they met you, like all the years before they knew you, that's going to get you off on the wrong foot. So I never do that. I listen. When you listen, you have everything you need. So stop worrying about giving a speech and
Right.
start listening to what people really care about.
Right. 2 ears, one mouth.
There's a reason.
Yeah. So, given what we're talking about, what do you do is becomes such a or almost automatic first question. What are some alternate ways? I mean, you said what are you working on was one of them. And also, I was just thinking about in many professional gatherings, you have a name tag, and below the name tag is usually the name of your company.
So people will ask, what does your company do?
Exactly. Right. So you get, oh, what's choice ladder? And boom, so now you have to explain what is choice ladder. So now there, most likely it's going to be a prepared line. It can be but you
You
could
can
still
do the
custom.
prepared line. You can do it. You can say, well, I'll give you what the line is. What we say is da 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 da. But let me tell you what it means. It means this. And then make sure you turn that part into a personal sort of conversation as opposed to feeding them a line. You can say, well, we say da 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 da, but what that means is I spent a lot of time with people who earn a great living and doubt every decision they make.
Hmm.
So now I go, oh, I know someone like that, right? Like give them something to touch rather than a line. But you can give both. I can say, well, I usually tell people I'm in this, but honestly, what I'm spending most of my time on right now is blah. And you know what it looks like? Because if you go, I do websites. That's nothing. If you say, I am a website designer, and I know that means maybe everything and nothing because there's a million kinds. I'm not a website designer, but if I were, I would say, the way I look at it is I take something beautiful that someone imagined and I make it with computer code or with pixels. Like I do the equivalent of building a house, but I do it digitally. And it's so fun because I can make something that someone dreamed up. I make it real so it lives on. I can't tell you how much fun that is. Like then you talk about what you like about it. Or maybe it's not about the website. Be like, I create websites, but I work for this amazing company. Then maybe you talk about the company. There's so many ways. There's no one way to talk about it. But make sure you talk about what you want to talk about. You know what I mean? That's your
Mhm.
choice to say, like, oh, they're doing such great stuff. If you're trying to help bring attention to this company, I'm working for this startup. They are fantastic. Okay, let's talk about that.
Hmm.
We don't have to talk about how you actually are bored with websites if you don't feel like doing it. One other question, Krishna. What if someone doesn't like the job they're in, but they're trying to get into something new? And someone could say, well, I've been working for years in more of an office role, but I'll tell you what I'm obsessed with. I cannot stop thinking about working for blank blank. I've always wanted to do it. I've made some inroads, I've made some calls, and I'm really looking to do this in this industry. Say it, even if you don't have it. How do you know that person doesn't have a brother-in-law who works in that? So don't be afraid to say what's aspirational. Like
Hmm.
my friend Elise says, deny the premise of the question. If they say, what do? You can talk about what you want to do. Or another woman I know who is a retired travel agent. She's
Mhm.
very touchy about saying, I'm just retired because she thinks it makes her irrelevant. She is very touchy about it. I said, don't say, I'm retired, I'm done for. Say, oh, well, what do I do? I'm not doing this now, but for 30 years, I traveled the world and sold some of the best trips on the planet. I've been to every continent. Travel has been my life. That's
Wow.
it. No one needs to know you're not getting paid by a travel agent right now. Like that's what you did. Talk about that. People, oh, really? Did you ever go to uh, Botswana? I'm thinking of going there. Like, this is the place for you to jump off. No one asked for your W 2 and tax status.
That is funny. You are always been hilarious, Terry. So, there was you just touched on something that happened probably exactly 10 years ago. I used to run many learning circles when my first book came out in 2011, and in one of them, many people. I used to do it. I think once a week, every Thursday or something like that, and the same people would show up, and I got to know them over a period of time. And one of them had introduced, or I don't know how she introduced herself, but I reintroduced her to somebody else saying she's an actress. And she corrected me. She said, I'm not an actress, I act. I thought that was an
Oh,
interesting distinction between identity and
and
vocation.
action. I love this. Yes. Well, you got shamed out of some
But,
people would say I'm not an actress, I'm an actor. But you know what? That does get caught up into what am I versus what do I do?
right.
And
So,
then think about it. What do you do means literally what action do you take?
correct. So, what happened there? So, that obviously that was in public. So, as you said, I remember it to this day.
Oh, I bet.
And I don't do that anymore. I don't say she's a writer. She writes.
Oh, so you change it for everyone now. Very
Yeah,
interesting.
because I'm very touchy. I'm very touchy about it now because I don't want to be told that I'm not a writer. I am. But that was only until a couple weeks ago when I was reading some research where how you identify yourself can actually help you, especially when it comes to writing. If you think of yourself as a writer, you're more motivated to write than I like to write or I write.
Really?
Yeah. So have you heard of that? And I want to,
No, no, I didn't. I would think it would be fixed mindset would make you feel, I don't know. I didn't know what the research said about that,
yeah.
but you're saying it helps to identify as.
Yeah, but again, I know in certain instances that may work, in certain other instances, it could create problems too, right? So I think it needs to be used more judiciously. For me,
Yes.
for example, I think it'll help me to call myself a writer because then I feel obligated to write. Because you know me, I try to find every reason not to. So in my case, I think it's going to help, but in some other case, you get attached to that identity and get probably could resent it.
Yes. Yes. And also this idea that you should be one thing and you're just not. I mean, on some days you're a speaker, on other days you're a consultant, on other days you're a writer when you're doing a lot of writing. I think as long as we don't assume we have to shoehorn into one identity and one thing, I think then you can do lots of things. And people are particular. Yes, people are particular about that.
So,
Uh,
do you have an opinion? Obviously, this is probably, it is, I mean, based on your reactions, it looks like a new topic to you in terms of saying I'm a speaker or a writer or this versus
yeah.
this is what I do. Do you have any
Yeah.
reactions on that?
I do. I do think it's completely personal. Some people have worked incredibly hard to earn their living as an actor and they want to tell you they're an actor. I think this again is it's idiosyncratic. It's person to person. I tend to not say, I think, well, I'm a writer. No, I guess I do. I'm a writer and I'm a speaker. But what I like to focus on the action myself. I'm a big verb fan. I like the verbs. I wouldn't certainly correct someone if they describe me as any of those things, but I would, oh, okay. Sometimes someone will just completely, someone, just Terry, she's a PR person. I was like, no, 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 I'm not. But I think it's kind of like when you can say I'm this, but I think we can't assume that the other person knows what the heck that is. If you say I'm a marketing consultant, most people don't know what that could mean a million things.
Hmm.
So I think it's fine to identify. Do your conversation partner, your new friend, your colleague a favor and explain what that means. And it's usually going to involve action.
Right. So
Contextualize it. Contextualize it.
that's it. Contextualize it in an example or a story that
Yes.
says, for example, in fact, it just happened actually Saturday night. Yeah, today is what, Monday? Yeah,
Mhm.
Saturday night. I had this gentleman, a friend of a long time. He was very apologetic and he said, Krishna, I know you for a while, but I can't grasp what you do.
And he might be embarrassed because he doesn't know how to explain and he feels he should know.
Yes, that's exactly. He was. And I think he might have even said, "I'm a little embarrassed that I know you for so long, and I've failed to grasp." He said that, "I've failed to grasp what you do," which actually, I think he was just being humble. He just didn't know because I
Mhm.
have never told him, or I've not told him in a way he understood. But this person happens to be a psychiatrist. So he knows a lot about the stuff I do, even though mine is more related to how you make decisions. It does use a lot of psychology and systems thinking and neuroscience and all of that stuff. So there's some
Mhm.
level of overlap, and he knew that. But I think he wanted to know more. How do you make a living?
Yeah. Like, I think people are kind of like, that's really great, but how do you people pay you for that? I mean, they do want to know.
And and in the conversation, that was what, and I think he was more curious how I am not working anywhere per se.
How are you earning your keep?
Yes, exactly. And I think it got to that. So when people say, what do you do? I think that's also, if it is a known topic, then they know
But
what it
when it's
is.
consulting or when it's something they're not sure, how do
Yeah,
you make your money? Are you like, what are you
right.
selling
But they won't
t-shirts?
necessarily ask you that because that's too
No.
personal.
Right. That's right.
So I think answering a question of how you deliver value, because then he said, how do you get your clients? I said, I don't look for too many clients. I just need two at a time. And
That's a
And
very specific business setup,
right.
right?
And he said, "Oh, you must charge them a lot." I said, "Yes." And end of story. So
You know, what's a lot?
a lot is half my monthly bills if you have two clients.
Right, exactly.
It's simple math, right? So, but for him, I think he was trying to understand the business model, right? A psychologist,
Yes.
a psychologist, a psychiatrist who meets a patient, let's just say they charge $150 an hour. It takes a lot of $150 an hour to make a living.
And you only have so many hours in a day.
Exactly. So I think he was trying to figure out how does this model work.
Then that
But
gets into the topic of are you Christian, but you in general, anyone, are is it a conversation about money? Because if you're at a business event, someone still say I am, and it's all say it's women business owners. Well, and what is something that costs? Like I think that there are some places where you'll think, oh, I don't want to talk about that here. But I want to make sure that even though every group and culture has their own rules and taboo, I do think we need to talk about money more,
hmm,
especially women, because how else can women check to know are they undercharging or not? Like, and I'll say to someone, we can talk about that. Are you comfortable talking about money? Can we just get it out there? Yes, because they want to know. Now that's a specific venue, a
yeah.
place, not maybe someone's mother's birthday party. Maybe that's not the right time, place. You have to feel it out. But sometimes people really are curious.
Hmm.
Maybe that psychiatrist is like, I'd rather be a consultant. Like, can you make a living doing what you're doing? They're just curious. It doesn't
I
necessarily.
had no trouble, and it was in a private setting. Even though it was at a party, it was we were just the two of us, and I felt he was extremely sincere. To
I make a point about that,
clear,
about your friend, a man I admire a lot who does a lot of talking, teaches people how to write and does a lot of talk about referral. How do you get people to refer you? His name is Michael Roderick. And he says, don't just tell good stories or tell what you do, tell them in a way that can be retold. Don't just think, how do I tell this story? Because sometimes we'll tell too much or go off on tangents. Make your stuff ready to go boxes so that someone can listen and immediately turn around and go, oh, I just met this guy, Krishna. Here's what he does. It's very interesting. If you don't make it simple enough that someone can grab it and explain it, then it's going to be like, oh, he does something with consulting. I don't know. That's not very helpful to anybody. So
that's
think about the second degree of that, which is, can someone else tell someone else what you do, which can be very valuable in a networking
I
situation.
think that's one huge deal. Yeah, to go but package it in to go boxes so that they can deliver it to somebody else. That's
Yes.
when the potential for virality exists, right? Otherwise, it
Yes.
ends right there. You're the only one who can do it.
You should talk to him, Krishna. He'd be great for this. He's Mr. Referral. I mean, I don't know. I just look, it's fun to talk to bright people. I learn something every time I do. Like every time I talk to you.
Well, thank you. I'll take it as a compliment. So, first of all, I want to thank you for just being you, saying whatever comes to your mind. And who was it? I was talking to my daughter yesterday, and I said, I love Terry's energy, and she said, I love her bluntness.
Yes, the young people really appreciate my no BS.
No BS.
And
And
she's lovely too. I'm looking forward to catching up with her.
awesome, awesome. And so I think you hit the high point just now about how to say what you do in and package it in a way that it has to be sticky, it has to be memorable, so that it can be delivered by them to somebody else.
That's
And
right.
I think he does something that I can't explain, means you failed.
Yeah, it's like don't give a 20-minute monologue on your life story. No one woke up asking for that, for sure.
And in fact, even with this friend, finally I said, because again, even the word executive coach, life coach, all these things are quite nebulous.
The nebulous is exact. It's like, what does that even mean?
Right. So
And don't,
finally,
here's
I
the
said
thing.
I work mainly with CEOs, and I help them with their business and everything that interferes with it.
There you go. I love that.
Yeah,
Here's what I would wish every coach would stop saying, which is helping people live their best life. Because if you're not, then you're just a jerk. If you're trying to help people live a worse life, you're a jerk. So let's just assume we're all trying to help each other live our best lives. It's not specific enough.
this is almost as good as what kind of a speaker are you? And I'm a motivational speaker, right? What's your take on that one?
I think, is there any other kind?
That's right. So I want to end on that one. And do you have any parting thoughts?
I think that our discomfort in talking about ourselves and what we do, have done, or want to do is linked. It has nothing to do with the other person who's asking. So stop trying to manage other people's questions. It really lies with us. And so if you feel discomfort or awkward about something, ask yourself why? What's wrong? What am I trying to? I'm just trying to have conversations with great people so that I know who I want to talk to again. That is the whole point. Uh, just be yourself isn't very helpful as advice, but it would be helpful to think about what is it I'm saying and what don't I like about it? What's making me
Absolutely.
cringe about it? And I can change the words and just explain it in a way that I'd explain it to a seventh grader and have it be really entertaining. Maybe it's
Absolutely.
fun, right? Have fun talking about what you do. Otherwise, you're putting a wall up.
That's right. It's in fact now in most of our choices, given that I study choices, are made to really manage your discomfort,
That's right.
right? So, to your point, how you answer this again is to get more familiar. And one of the things I don't know if you mentioned, every time you ask this question, what do you do? It's also an opportunity for self reflection, right? And then,
It is. It's a chance to get to know who you are so that you're more comfortable with sharing it. That's the point. The point is to connect with other humans in a meaningful way, not impress everyone with your scary resume. Please do not waste your time doing this. We are not looking to be scared by your resume.
well, so let's have fun and always enjoy talking to you. And thank you. And talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye. This is Krishna Pendyala wishing you all well and reminding you to always be open to new perspectives. Take care.